All right, let's dive in. Today, we are taking a trip to a place that has terrified and fascinated people for centuries. Dante Alighieri's Inferno. We're going to go on a guided tour, descending circle by circle through all 9 layers of his vision of hell. And you'll see how a 700-year-old poem can tell us a surprising amount about our own ideas of justice.
But before we start that descent, I want you to think about this question, because it's the key to everything we're about to see. Imagine a system of justice so perfect, so poetic, that your punishment wasn't just some random torment. What if it was a direct, eternal reflection of the wrongs you did in life? What would that even look like?
Well, Dante actually had a name for it: contrapasso. This is the one single, unbreakable law of the Inferno. Every single punishment we're about to witness is a kind of ironic, poetic justice. The punishment either looks exactly like the sin, or it's the total opposite. It's the logic engine that powers this entire underworld. So keep that word in mind. It's going to come up a lot.
So here's our roadmap for the journey down. We're going to start in Upper Hell, which is for sins of weakness. Then we have to get through the massive city of Dis, which is basically the gateway to where the really bad stuff happens. After that, we'll navigate the circles of violence and the super complicated trenches of fraud before we finally hit the frozen core of it all.
Okay, our tour begins here, in the upper circles. Now, in Dante's system, the sins punished up here are seen as less severe. Why? Because they're all about a lack of self-control, sins of passion, of appetite. It's about failing to control your will, not about deliberately choosing to do evil. And that distinction, it's absolutely crucial.
So the very first circle, limbo, isn't really a place of punishment at all. This is where you'd find all the good and righteous people who either lived before Christ or died before they could be baptized. We're talking about some of the greatest minds in history here: Plato, Socrates, even a hero like Julius Caesar. Their torment isn't physical pain. It's this deep, endless sadness, this constant sighing, because they know they're forever cut off from God.
Okay, this slide is a perfect demonstration of contrapasso in action. Let's look at Circle 2, lust. In life, these people were swept away by their passions, right? So in death, they're literally, eternally swept around by a violent, hurricane-force wind, with no rest ever. Then you go one level down to Circle 3 for the gluttons. They spent their lives mindlessly consuming food and drink. So now, they lie in this disgusting, icy slush while the giant three-headed dog, Cerberus, mindlessly consumes them, ripping them apart for all eternity. See how that works?
Moving on, in the fourth circle, we find everyone who was obsessed with greed, and that includes both the people who hoarded money and the people who wasted it. Their punishment? They have to spend forever pushing these huge, heavy weights against each other in this pointless, grinding battle. Then, a little deeper, we get to the fifth circle and the mucky river Styx. This is where the wrathful are, just furiously fighting each other in the mud on the surface. But there's another group here too, hidden just beneath the surface, the sullen. The people who stewed in their anger and never let it out. Now they're stuck under the mud, able to do nothing but gurgle their sadness forever.
We've now made it across the river Styx, and we are approaching a massive landmark. And I mean massive. This isn't just another circle. Think of it like a heavily fortified border wall. We are at the gates of the city of Dis. This is the entrance to lower hell. And from this point on, the game completely changes.
And here's why it all changes. The sins we've seen so far, those were sins of weakness, of not being able to control yourself. But from here on out, we're dealing with sins of pure malice. These are the souls who didn't just mess up. They made a conscious, deliberate choice to hurt people, to go against God, and to embrace evil.
But you can't just walk in. The gates are slammed shut, guarded by fallen angels who want nothing to do with our travelers. Then these 3 horrifying monsters, the Furies, show up on the walls, and they start screaming for Medusa to come and turn Dante to stone. And for the first time on this whole trip, Dante and his guide Virgil are totally stuck. They're powerless. And right when you think it's all over, a heavenly angel appears, just strolls across the swamp like it's nothing, and with one single, almost bored-looking touch, forces the gates to fly open.
Once we're inside those city walls, we are officially in the 6th circle of hell. And this is where we see the punishments shift from being just states of endless misery to, well, active, direct torture. This entire area is for the heretics.
Now, the main sin being punished here was denying that the soul is immortal. And the contrapasso for this one is just brilliant. Since these souls believe that when your body dies, that's it. Game over. Your soul dies too. Their punishment is to be sealed inside a burning hot tomb for all of eternity. They essentially chose the grave as their final destination, and now they've got it.
Going deeper still, we enter the seventh circle, and this whole massive area is all about one thing: violence. But Dante, being the organized guy he was, splits it up into 3 separate rings based on who or what the violence was aimed at.
Just look at how this is laid out. In the outer ring, you have those who are violent against other people. They're stuck in a river of boiling blood, and if they try to come up too high, centaurs shoot them with arrows. Then you get to the middle ring. This one is genuinely creepy. It's for people who are violent against themselves. They've been turned into these twisted, thorny trees, and they're denied a human body forever, while harpies just sit in their branches and chew on them. And finally, the inner ring, for those violent against God. They're trapped on a desert of burning hot sand while fire just rains down on them from the sky. All right, we are now descending into the 8th circle, and this place is maybe the weirdest, most complex part of the entire Inferno. It's called the Malabolge, which means evil trenches, and it's basically this huge stone pit with 10 deep circular ditches, and each ditch has a unique punishment for a different kind of fraud. And the punishments in here are just wild. They're so specific and so gruesome. The flatterers who spouted filth in life are now drowning in it. The simoniacs who sold positions in the church are stuffed headfirst into rock holes with their feet on fire like a horrible reverse baptism. Sorcerers who tried to see into the future have their heads twisted completely around so they can only ever look backwards. Hypocrites have to wear these beautiful golden cloaks that look amazing, but on the inside they're lined with solid crushing lead. Thieves are in a pit full of snakes, and when they get bitten, their bodies just dissolve into ash, then have to painfully reform over and over and over. And the Sowers of Discord? Well, they get to spend eternity being hacked to pieces by a demon with a huge sword, healing up just in time to get hacked up all over again.
Now, it's really important to remember the context of this book. As this slide points out, Dante was a man of his time, a 14th century European Christian, so his decision to place certain historical figures, like the Prophet Muhammad, into this particular trench is a direct reflection of that very specific medieval point of view.
We've done it. We've reached the end of the line. We've passed through all the layers of fraud, and now we are standing at the edge of the 9th and final circle. This is it, the very bottom of the universe, the place that Dante saved for the absolute worst sin a person could possibly commit: treason.
But I want you to forget every picture you've ever seen of hell as this big, fiery pit. Because in Dante's vision, the ultimate evil, the very center of all sin, isn't hot with rage or passion. No, it is cold. It is still. It's just a vast, frozen wasteland. The heart of hell is ice.
So the sin here is betraying a special bond, a bond of trust. And the punishment is to be frozen solid in a massive lake of ice called Cocytus. But Dante adds this one detail that is just terrifying. For the worst kinds of betrayal, a soul is damned the instant the sin is committed. It plummets straight down to this frozen lake, while up on earth its body just keeps walking around, now possessed by a demon. And right in the very center of this whole frozen wasteland, there is one figure that dominates everything. And everything about him is based on the number 3, a sick parody of the Holy Trinity.
And there he is, Lucifer. He's a huge monster with 3 faces, frozen from the waist down in the lake. And the constant flapping of his giant wings is what creates the freezing cold wind that keeps the entire lake frozen. And in each of his 3 mouths, he is eternally chewing on who Dante saw as the 3 greatest traitors in all of history: Brutus and Cassius, who betrayed Julius Caesar, the founder of the Roman Empire, and in the center mouth, getting the worst of it, is Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus Christ, the founder of the church. In Dante's world, empire and church were the 2 pillars of civilization, and these 3 men tried to tear them both down.
And that brings our tour to a close with one last question for you to think about. For Dante, sins of passion, of anger, those were bad, but they came from a lack of control. He believed the greatest evil wasn't a crime of fiery rage, it was a crime of cold, premeditated betrayal. So what does it say about our own ideas of good and evil, that in this incredible vision, the final form of evil isn't a raging inferno, but a silent, motionless heart of ice?